You've heard the terms. In whispered rumors, in sensational news headlines, in the plot of every other crime thriller. The dark web, a digital underworld, a lawless zone, a place where anything and everything is for sale. But what if almost everything you've been told is a carefully constructed myth? What if the real story is far more mundane, yet infinitely more revealing about our own digital lives? Welcome, I'm your archivist, and tonight we're not going to tell a story about a specific horror found in the shadows. We're going to map the shadows themselves. To understand the stories that will follow on this channel, you first need to understand the geography. We need to talk about the deep web, the dark web, and the monumental space between truth and fiction that surrounds them. Let's start with a fundamental truth. The internet you use every day, Google, Facebook, Netflix, Wikipedia, that's less than 4% of the total internet. It's called the surface web. It's the part indexed by search engines, the shiny tip of the digital iceberg. Beneath the surface, submerged in the vast, cold depths, lies the deep web. The deep web is not a place, it's a condition. It is any part of the internet that is not and cannot be indexed by standard search engines. Think of it as everything behind a login page, a paywall, or a private network. Your email inbox? That's the deep web. Your online banking portal? Deep web. Your company's internal employee server, your medical records database, a private Dropbox folder, the draft of a blog post you haven't published yet, all deep web. It is overwhelmingly benign, bureaucratic, and essential to modern life. It's where your digital self lives. Its size is staggering, containing an estimated 400 to 500 times more data than the entire surface web. You are in the deep web right now. You probably spend most of your online life there. Now, within this enormous, mostly dull expanse of the deep web, there is a tiny, specialized subsection. This is the dark web. The dark web is a purpose-built network, existing on top of the regular internet, but requiring specific software, configurations, and authorizations to access. The most common gateway is the onion router, or Tor. Tor doesn't just hide your activity. It encrypts and bounces your connection through multiple volunteer-run servers around the world, wrapping it in layers of anonymity, hence the onion. When you access a site on the Tor network, which ends in .onion, you are on the dark web. The core technology, crucially, was not created by criminals. It was developed in the mid-1990s by U.S. Naval Research Laboratory scientists to protect government intelligence communications. Its purpose: anonymity for the vulnerable. It is used by whistleblowers to leak to journalists, by dissidents under oppressive regimes to communicate, by activists organizing in hostile territories, by ordinary people seeking privacy from corporate and government surveillance. This is the noble, vital heart of the technology. But anonymity is a double-edged sword. The same cloak that protects a dissident also protects a predator. This brings us to the marketplace. So, what actually happens there? Let's dismantle the Hollywood myth piece by piece. The commerce of the forbidden. Yes, there are and have been black markets. The most famous, the Silk Road, was an eBay-like platform for illegal goods, primarily drugs. It was shut down by the FBI in 2013. Others rose and fell. Alphabay, Hansa. These sites functioned with user reviews, escrow services, and forums. The reality is less a chaotic bazaar and more a grim transactional e-commerce system for the illicit. You can find stolen data dumps, credit cards, social security numbers, forged documents, and hacking tools for rent. But the fantasy of a one-stop shop for hiring assassins or purchasing weapons of mass destruction, that is almost entirely scam or law enforcement sting operations. The real currency is trust, and it is fragile. The red rooms and extreme content. This is the cornerstone of the dark web's legend. The supposed live-streamed, interactive torture and murder sessions. Here is the unequivocal truth, backed by cybersecurity experts, forensic investigators, and the physics of data transmission. Red rooms, as commonly described, are a technical impossibility and a modern myth. The bandwidth required for a live, interactive stream on the anonymized, slow Tor network is prohibitive. The risk of a viewer tracing the stream is immense. What does exist, in horrific abundance, is archived content, stills, videos, and text logs of real-world violence and abuse, shared on hidden forums. This is not a spectacle for sale. It is evidence of crimes, hoarded by the depraved in digital lockers. The distinction is critical. One is a fictional, interactive snuff film industry. The other is the grim archival of humanity's worst acts, traded like cursed baseball cards. The communities. This is where the true lingering horror often resides. The dark web hosts forums and chat rooms dedicated to every conceivable illicit interest. Pedophile networks, extremist ideological cells, hardcore communities that celebrate real-world violence. These are not bustling marketplaces but private, gated clubs of shared pathology. They function as echo chambers of radicalization and support networks for illegal activities. The threat here is not a product you can buy, but an ideology you can absorb, and collaborators you can find. The scams, the lies, the performance. Perhaps the most prevalent activity on the dark web is fraud. Fake hitman services that take your Bitcoin and vanish. Leaked celebrity nudes that are obvious fakes. UFO government secrets. Archives that contain megabytes of encrypted text which, when finally unlocked, reveal the text of Moby Dick. The dark web is a theater, and many of its most notorious actors are simply con artists, preying on the gullible and the morbidly curious. The desire to see the forbidden makes people suspend disbelief, and grifters capitalize on it mercilessly. So, we have a triad, a vast, boring deep web that is our digital basement, a small, anonymized dark web built on noble technology, and a layer of genuine criminality, grotesque communities, and rampant scams that exist within that anonymous space. Why does the myth persist? Why does the idea of a digital underworld captivate us? Because it serves a narrative purpose. The dark web, in the popular imagination, has become the modern heart of darkness. It's a blank space on the map where we project our anxieties about the internet's scale, our loss of privacy, the alienating nature of technology, and the fear of what humans are truly capable of when given perfect anonymity. It is easier to imagine a literal marketplace of evil than to confront the diffuse, banal, and systemic evils that already flow through the capillaries of our surface web. The data brokers, the surveillance capitalism, the radicalization algorithms on mainstream platforms. The real horror of the dark web is not that it is a separate evil place. The horror is that it is a magnifying glass held up to the darker aspects of human nature and the internet itself. It takes the scams, the fraud, the illicit trade, and the hateful communities that already exist online, strips away the logos and the polish, and lets them operate in their rawest form. It is the id of the internet. In our coming episodes, we will venture into stories born from this ecosystem. Stories of people who stumbled into these anonymized currents and were pulled under. Stories of how the tools meant to protect were weaponized to torment. Stories where the line between the surface and the depth blurred with terrifying consequences. But remember this foundational map. The ocean is mostly deep, still water. The monsters we fear are rare, and often they are just reflections. Until next time, stay curious, but be more cautious.